a smile for the world. Everybody's got a smile for the world. You gotta let it shine brightly, 'cause that's what it's for. Ain't no sense in crying when your life has got you down. Ain't no sense in crying when your life has got you down. Just put a smile on your face, you're gonna turn your world around. Baby, 'cause everybody's got a smile for the world. Everybody's got a smile for the world. You gotta let it shine brightly, 'cause that's what it's for. Ain't no sense in crying when your life has got you down. Ain't no sense in crying when life has got you down. Just put a smile on your face, you're gonna turn your world around. Now when you feel like something's missing from your day-to-day, when you feel like something's missing from your day-to-day, well, just put a smile on your face, you're gonna chase those blues away. Well, now, 'cause everybody's got a smile for the world. Yes, everybody's got a smile for the world. You gotta let it shine brightly, 'cause that's what it's for. Everybody's got a smile for the world. Oh yeah, everybody's got a smile for the world. You just gotta let it shine brightly, 'cause that's what it's for. Yeah.
Alexa Ehrlich and Lauren James, I got a smile on my face. I hope you do as well. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you may happen to be watching this, we welcome you. I'm Kim Hawkins, Spiritual Director and Senior Minister here. Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley is an inclusive, progressive spiritual community dedicated to teaching spiritual tools to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for everyone. And I say every week, we welcome you no matter where you may happen to be on your own personal spiritual journey. We're so glad and grateful you decided to join us for our Sunday celebration. So in addition to our musicians, Alexa and Ehrlich, I want to introduce just a couple people real quickly. Our behind-the-scenes crew, two members that have been dedicated with us for several years now, are Bill Miner, whose birthday is today, and his wife Connie Miner, whose birthday is tomorrow. So I know you'll join me in wishing them a happy birthday. And we also have practitioner Frank Young, who in a few moments will be doing our opening prayer and reading. So I invite you now to take that collective deep breath as we go again to Alexa Ehrlich and Lauren James to prepare us for our invocation.
I'm here to remind you of your magnificence, to help you awake to all the wonder that you are. long to show you all the joy you're worthy of. I'm here to remind you how much you're truly loved. I'm here to remind me of my magnificence, to help me awake to all the wonder that I am. You long to show me all the wonder that I am. I'm here to remind you how much you're truly loved. I'm here to remind you how much you're truly loved.
Peace be unto thee, stranger. Enter and be not afraid. I have left the gate open, and thou art welcome to my home. There is room in my house forever, for all. I have swept the hearth and lighted the fire. This room is warm and cheerful, and you will find comfort and rest within. The table is laid, and the fruits of life are spread before thee. The wine is here also, it sparkles in the light. I have set a chair for you, where the sunbeams dance through the shade. Sit and rest and refresh your soul. Eat of the fruit and drink of the wine. All is yours, and you are welcome. And now the reading. Great as the subconscious is, its tendency is to set in motion by the conscious thought, and in this lies the possibility of and the pathway to freedom. Freedom and bondage, sickness and health, poverty and riches, heaven and hell, good and bad, big and little, happiness and misery, peace and confusion, faith and fear, and all conditions which appear to be opposites are not really a result of the operation of opposing prayers, but are the way the one power is used, and so it is.
When the road is long and the mountain high, and all my courage has run dry, I look to the sea. That's where you speak to me, as I pray, as I wait for peace to come. Hear me now, I want to believe. I need to believe. Give me the strength I need to believe. And when my soul is aching from the weight of all my fear, as I surrender, I believe. Look at my life and cry a sad, sad tear for all the things I've never did because of fear. But in this moment, in your presence, I can feel the power. It's been waiting here inside of me. Hear me now. I want to believe. I need to believe. Give me the strength I need to believe. And when my soul is aching from the weight of all my fear, as I surrender, I believe I can fly so high. As I surrender, as I forgive, as I release and learn to love, and I can fly so high, so high. Oh, oh. I want to believe. I need to believe. Give me the strength I need to believe. And when my soul is aching from the weight of all my fear, as I surrender, I believe. I believe.
We are so very blessed, Alexa and Lauren, with your gorgeous music this morning. I will share with you that the camera person behind the camera in front of me has teared up, and I think she's not the only one in our center this morning. We are wrapping up our 7-part series, The Path to Less Stress and More Joy. We've had some fun names for my talks these past 6 weeks. Flip the script, kiss the wave, eat the frog, fly the kite, cut the rope, and wind the clock. And today we are talking about the 7th habit that Mark Batterson talks about in his book, Win the Day. This one is called Seed the Clouds. And as with the other habits, there's always a story behind how he came up with that particular name for this habit. In this case, it's a bit of history. In, November 13th, 1946, a small plane took off from Schenectady County Airport with a unique payload, 6 pounds of dry ice. The mission was to seed the clouds with solidified carbon dioxide in the hopes of bringing about condensation to cause precipitation. Now, for several months prior to this flight, the chemist involved, his name was Vincent Schaefer, had been working, he'd been researching in the General Electric Research Lab in secret ways to do this. So he had a GE Sub-Zero freezer, and he was creating clouds in the freezer with his breath, experimenting with different chemical substances he would add to try to cause condensation. For months, he had no luck. And then finally, on one hot day in July, he added some dry ice to the freezer. And what happened was a chemical reaction crystallized into snow, and he had his solution. So just a few months later, he took off in his single-engine plane, flew into a cumulus cloud, seeded that solidified carbon dioxide, the dry ice, and observers on the ground said that it looked like the cloud exploded and down came a significant snowfall that could be seen from 40 miles away. A local newspaper had got cute about the success that Schaefer had and said, "Today, Schaefer made it snow over Pittsfield. Next week, he'll walk on water." Quite a scientific breakthrough. So this idea of seeding the clouds means taking proactive measures today so that we produce the desired results or outcomes we want to see tomorrow. Simply put, sow today what you want to seed tomorrow. Batterson, in his book, as we've talked these last 7 weeks, 6 weeks, we have talked about letting go of yesterday, burying dead yesterdays, he phrased it, living fully in the present moment, and also imagining unborn tomorrows. So Seed the Clouds is about that third thing, imagining unborn tomorrows. Now, the most important thing we can do to seed the clouds of our tomorrows with that which we'd like to experience is prayer, quite simply. Prayer and all our spiritual practices that we teach. Batterson says the only ceiling on our intimacy with God and our impact on the world is our daily spiritual disciplines. The only ceiling on our intimacy with God and what we want to see in our world is our daily spiritual discipline. So I don't know about you. I think this is true for most of us. I think I'm preaching to the choir in some regards. I think most of you listening have daily spiritual practices. I hope so. But it also seems to be human nature that when things get tough, and boy, we've had a lot of challenges this last 2 years, haven't we, in addition to whatever life may be bringing you personally. When things get tough and we get worried or preoccupied or frenetic, we tend not to be as disciplined about our daily spiritual practices. And of course, that's exactly when we need to be more disciplined. So I want to talk about my practices and just in general how we might address this little issue. In the mornings when things go well, I like to, first of all, do some reading. Read something uplifting. You know, we read and hear so much that's depressing and pulls us down in the news. It's so important to go back to spiritual truth, like the beautiful passages Frank read this morning from our founder's Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind textbook. And then after reading, for another example, of course, of something in the morning that is rich is our Science of Mind magazine with daily inspirational readings for each day of the month. After reading, it's good to sit a bit, to marinate in what we've read, to let it sink in. And on Wednesday mornings, some of you may know, our practitioner Nancy Clay offers at 9 o'clock a community spiritual practice time where she'll read some rich spiritual food, invite people into a time of contemplation, and then sharing. So it's a great midweek pick-me-up, if you will. Everybody's invited. That's on Zoom. And of course, the third thing is prayer. I have been previewing a book that we will be using as our book of the month in October. And the author speaks quite eloquently about prayer. The author is Susan Taylor. She used to be the editor of Essence magazine and wrote for 25 years a column called In the Spirit. And the book, called All About Love, is comprised of selections of the most popular, beloved columns that she wrote over the years. So she wrote this about prayer, and I love this. She said, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said the purpose of prayer is not to turn God into some cosmic bellhop we ring for whenever we want something. The purpose of prayer is to remind us of our oneness with God, that we are made in God's image. I think there is a tendency sometimes when we get in real hot water to try to turn God into the cosmic bellhop that we call on. But the purpose of prayer is to remind us of our oneness with God. I love that, and I think it's so true, especially of our style of prayer that we teach. I think all prayers are valid, and I would never put down any particular type of prayer. But as you may know, in Science of Mind, we teach a 5-step affirmative prayer. So we're not beseeching God. We're not begging God. We're not trying to change God's mind about what it or she or he gives us, right? God doesn't need changing. God is changeless. And the nature of God is always giving and generous and loving. It wants nothing more than the highest and best for each of its creations, including you and me. So we don't pray to change God. We call our prayer spiritual mind treatment, meaning we're treating our consciousness, not God's, to remember the truth, to know our oneness, to know our good is at hand, and that we are in good hands with the divine who supports, sustains, and guides us. So the first step of our prayer is recognition. It's when we recognize, as Frank prayed for the group here in our offices as we did our centering prayer this morning off camera. Recognition is when you talk about the fact that God, Spirit, the divine source, whatever we call it, is simply all there is. It is omniscient, it is omnipresent, it is omnipotent. And we can further describe it with words like love, harmony, peace, perfect peace, exquisite love, unconditional love, beauty and freedom, and so much more. And the second step of our prayer is unification, where we do recognize that we can't be separate from God. If God is all there is, and that's what the mystics have taught for years, eons, then there's nothing for us to have been made from but cosmic divine stuff. So we cannot be separate from our good, from the peace, from the plenty, from the love, and so on that Spirit is. Now, once you get through those first two steps, if you've really allowed that truth to marinate and sink in, it's almost like there's nothing else to pray for, because we know our good is given. But the third step is when we use affirmations to affirm what it is we want to either shift or experience in our lives. I love what St. Francis of Assisi said about prayer. He said, "The result of prayer is life. Prayer irrigates the earth and heart." And I had to think about that. What does it mean to irrigate my heart? For me, it means watering, giving life to the seeds that live within me and that live within each of our hearts, the seeds of kindness, of compassion, of unconditional love, and of the knowing that we're one with each other. There is no other. We are all one in the divine. And to irrigate the earth, I think, means literally to give life to Mother Earth and that we take care of her, but also to irrigate all of life on the earth, to give life and hope and goodness and abundance and peace and harmony to the whole earth. That's what prayer is meant to do. So back to this idea of seeding the clouds. The trick is we have to be diligent about it. We have to be consistent. For me, it's a morning practice, because if I don't do it first thing in the morning, very oftentimes I don't sit and take that quiet time to read, to reflect, to meditate, and to pray. Yeah. So that's the first point I wanted to make, that prayer and spiritual practices are the most powerful tools for seeding the clouds. The second point is about vision. It's about envisioning what we want to see. God knows it's hard right now to focus on what we don't like that's going on. We're in the midst of a pandemic still that is still quite taking its toll on our people, our healthcare workers. We're in the midst of a great divisive situation politically in our country, a lot of controversy between maskers and anti-maskers and people that are vaccinated and people who are against, all that stuff. You all know, I don't have to go into it. But vision means we look to what we want to experience. For Schaeffer and seeding his clouds, he knew he wanted to be able to produce precipitation. What is it we want to see, to experience in our lives? In Proverbs, it is written, "Without vision, the people perish. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail." So if we don't have a vision, if we don't have a destination, if we don't have an idea of what we want to experience, where we want to go, we're probably not gonna get there. In Science of Mind, we teach what the mystics have taught for a long time and what quantum physics science is now proving to be accurate. That God's spirit in many aspects is unformed substance waiting to be molded by our consciousness. It is that field that quantum physicists call it the field of infinite potential, the quantum soup, if you will. We live in that quantum soup of infinite potential, unformed substance, possibilities. Quantum physicists now know that energy is everywhere, but it exists in wave form until it's interacted by consciousness, by awareness, by an observer, in which case the waves of possibility become particles, become solid, become real things and experiences. So it's important for us to imagine what we want. It's important for us to vision, put our sight on what we want to experience. As Batterson called it, to imagine unborn tomorrows. I came across a meditation this week, again in the app on my phone, Insight Timer, by my current favorite meditation teacher, Seen Mariani. She called the meditation Magical Alignment for Manifestation. We could call it magical. It feels magical at times, but it's not magical. It's science, really. But what she did was, it's just a 10-minute meditation. And she invites us to get quiet and then imagine our light body, that energetic body that is the essence of who we are. Imagine it hopping out of our physical body, out of our being, and exploring, wandering around, looking around in that field of all possibility. Looking at the beauty and what could be, and allowing our light body to choose what are those things we'd like to take back with us, we'd like to experience. So things like health, wealth, perfect self-expression, abundance. And then to bring it back into the physical body and know that it's possible. And it was just such a lovely meditation. The first time I did it, I imagined in that field of all possibilities things I personally wanted. So again, you could imagine if you wanted love in your life or abundance, a new job, whatever. But the second time I did it, I realized, hey, wait a minute. There's no limit here. She likened it to a credit card with no credit limit. You know, you can pick whatever you want and buy it and bring it home, and there's no limit. So the second time I did the meditation, I thought about what I wanted for the world. The peace, the harmony, the oneness, the truly taking care of each being on the planet, the world that works for everyone that we talk about in Science of Mind in our mission. And it was such a lovely, lovely experience. So I'm going to encourage us all to remember, to do that imagining. I watched a documentary last night, I think it was on NBC, about the anniversary of 9/11. And one of the points the doc made was that when that tragedy happened, when terrorists struck here in our homeland, we as a people in this country came together in magnificent ways. We stood up for one another. We supported one another. People risked their lives to save people. Young people were so inspired they decided to join the military or join projects to help make the world better. We came together. It united us. And here we are 20 years later in the midst of another huge challenge called the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's ripping us apart. We're allowing it to rip us apart. And so in this process of imagining and visioning, I'm inviting me, because I have shared, I can watch the TV sometimes, and when I hear somebody on the news that I disagree with, I can get really mad. And I can say not nice things to that TV screen. And that is not seeding the clouds. That is not seeding the clouds for what the world is that I want to see, the country I want to see. So I'm inviting us all to remember that, to imagine, to envision what it is from that field of infinite potential, what we might choose, what we might bring home to us. So we've got our spiritual practices, we've got visioning. The third thing and final thing I want to talk about is a game that some friends taught me recently that can be kind of superficial, but it also can have very profound uses. They called the game of options. And these are friends that were visiting last weekend from Portland. And they talked about how sometimes in life we feel like we have two choices, black and white, this or that, that's it. And really, we have shades of gray that we're not looking at. Always there are shades of gray. And so when we're in a situation where we feel like it's black and white, this or that, we're invited to brainstorm. We're invited to ask the question, if there were other options, what might they be? I'm going to give you a mundane example of how I learned this practice last week, and then I'm going to talk about how we might apply that to helping to co-create a world that works for everybody. So last weekend we had big plans, and you know the old saying, if you want to make God laugh, make plans. Our plans were to go up to Crater Lake in the morning early and do a 5-mile hike to a waterfall and enjoy getting out of the smoky air that we've had here in the Rogue Valley. Well, by the night before Friday night, it became clear that might not be possible, and sure enough, Saturday morning when we woke up, the air quality at Crater Lake National Park was just as bad as it was here in the valley. It was unhealthy. So there went that plan. And it seemed at the time there were two obvious options. One was to go and hike in the bad air, which didn't seem like a good option. And the other option was perhaps to stay home and, pop some popcorn and watch movies and be couch potatoes, which would have been okay. But we started as a foursome, 4 of us, to brainstorm what might be the other options. It's pretty smoky almost everywhere you look, but on the coast, it's been clear. So we made the choice to go down to Brookings for the day and enjoy hiking on the beach and being in clear air and having a break. Now, another piece to this option thing that I had to deal with was this. If we'd gone to Crater Lake, we would probably have been gone about a half day. To drive to the coast from Medford is more like 2.5 hours, not 1 or 1.5. And I hadn't completed my mind map. I had a glitch on my computer program last week, and my mind map, MindJet Manager program wasn't working. I got it fixed, but I hadn't taken my notes to create the mind map, and it's just a lot easier for me to look at my mind map, which I have in front of me right now. And so I thought, okay, I can either go and just rely on my notes next week and maybe be a little less organized, or I can stay home and make the mind map and miss out on the hike. And then we started to brainstorm. And I realized something very obvious. The shade of gray was that I have a laptop computer, which I can take with me in the car. And I'm one of these people who can do work in a car. Some people get car sick, but for an hour or less, I'm fine. So I took my laptop, I created the mind map, I got to spend the day at the coast, I got everything I wanted. Now, it's interesting to note that when we do this brainstorming process, it's always good to bring in as many people as possible, because the more people, the more ideas, the more possibilities, and we kind of move off of each other's ideas. So in the car, Deborah, who was driving us, asked if I had my power cord to my computer because I could have plugged it in. She works from her car sometimes. And I hadn't brought the power cord because I hadn't shared with her what I was planning to do. And I was a little nervous that the battery would run out. It didn't, luckily. But I just share this because had we been willing to brainstorm all together, we probably would have come up with the best possibilities for all concerned. Now, that's a pretty mundane example of how to use this game of options. But what if instead of feeling discouraged about the situation in our nation today, what if instead of feeling mad and blaming and shaming people who disagree with us and feeling hopeless and angry, what if we asked if there were other options, what might they be? So I know some of us have had disagreements even within our own families around issues of vaccinations and so on. And so what if the two options weren't either getting into a fight about it or just becoming silent and not communicating? What if there were ways to listen, to communicate, to ask questions, to try to be understanding even if we don't agree? I believe there are many shades of possibilities. Now, I'm not saying that when we politically disagree with an ideology, which I strongly do right now, in Science of Mind, our principles stand firmly for a world that works for everyone. So it's not a world where we suppress voters among black people. It's not a world where we make the gap between rich and poor bigger. It's not. But at the same time, we can stand up for what we believe and vote our conscience and even go to the streets if we want to march. We can also brainstorm, how might I be with my fellow beings even when they disagree with me? How might I listen? How might I phrase something? When is it important to speak and when is it not? There are so many shades of gray I think we could be practicing. And again, I go back to that idea of prayer and meditation. If the purpose of prayer is to feel our oneness of God, we cannot help but feel our oneness with God as it appears in every other person on the planet, whether they agree with us or not, whether they're politically aligned with us or not. Prayer irrigates our hearts and the earth. And one more little thing I'll add in there is, remember Schaefer, when he was experimenting with seeding the clouds, it was an accident when he added dry ice and it worked. I think as we experiment with new ways of listening, of being with people, of creating the future we want together, there are going to be accidents that happen. We're going to make discoveries, and perhaps they're not accidents. You know, the whole idea about God, synchronicities are really God remaining anonymous. When we set an intention, when we envision the world we want to see, and when we irrigate our hearts with that prayer and all our spiritual practices, the way becomes clear. We get new ideas, fresh ideas, ways of thinking that are not black and white. Yeah. I'm going to end with a poem from Rumi that many of you may be familiar with, but it speaks so beautifully to this. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Let's go into prayer. So I choose to focus, to recognize, to feel, to sense that presence, that power of infinite love, of absolute peace that passeth all human understanding. That power that is giving, that is generous, that has a field of infinite possibilities that it offers us for the asking. Ask and it is given. As long as it doesn't harm someone else, it is Spirit's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. God, Spirit, Source, wants nothing more than to see a world that works for all of its creation. And I know there's no way that I or anyone else walking this earth can be separate from that goodness that God is, from that love, harmony, freedom, beauty, joy. It's impossible because God is all there is. So I know this week as we recommit to the discipline of spiritual practice, to turn our attention to reading things other than the depressing news, to read spiritual truth, to read the mystics, that we are uplifted, allowing ourselves time apart. Jesus so often went apart to be quiet, to be still, to connect. And as we pray, whenever we hear a calamity or something we disagree with, it's a call to prayer, to affirm again our oneness, our goodness, the goodness of God, and the highest and best for everyone here. I know as we tear ourselves away from judgment and blaming and dissension and focus on what we want, that we help bring that about as we wander in that field that Sean Mariani talked about, that field of infinite possibility, that quantum field. There are no limits. Our credit card has no upper limit with God. And finally, as we pray that game of options, knowing as we collaborate together There's always a way, a new way, a middle way. There are shades of gray between the black and white, the I'm right and you're wrong. I am so grateful for these tools that we have for this teaching. I'm grateful for all spiritual philosophies who teach oneness, who teach kindness, who teach the golden rule. And I know as we come together as a people and focus on these truths, a tide is turned and we can recreate that feeling of oneness, of brotherhood and sisterhood, of caring for each being on the planet. We need to be the change we want to see, as Gandhi said. So in gratitude to speak these words, in gratitude for this community and this faith, I simply release this word into that aspect of the law that says, yes, my beloveds, it is done. I let go, I let God, and we say together, and so it is. Amen.
I celebrate my abundance today. By giving this gift, I show my faith. As I open my heart, my world becomes a better place. I release all fear as I share gratefully. This love that I give always gives back to me. Knowing my oneness with everything else, I know that all that I give to myself. I celebrate my abundance today. By giving this gift, I show my faith. As I open my heart, my world becomes a better place. I release all fear as I share gratefully. This love that I give always gives back to me. Knowing my oneness with everything else, I know that all that I give to myself. Knowing my oneness with everything else, I know that all that I give to myself.
And it is time now for us to do just that, to celebrate our abundance through the practice of sacred giving. It simply means that we are aware and grateful for all the good that flows to us, and we make a conscious choice to give a portion of it to the places where we are spiritually fed. So I invite you to say our affirmation with us. It will come up on the screen for you. Graciously I give from a place of love, knowing that as I give, so do I richly receive. That is so true. Couple ways you can support our ministry and give back so that we can continue with our mission of uplifting lives and creating a world that works for all. You can go to our website, www.cslroguevalley.org, and hit the donate button. You can simply use the donate button here on our Facebook page if that's where you're watching us, or you can mail a check the old-fashioned way to CSLRV, P.O. Box 1458, Medford, Oregon 97501. And a big thank you to everyone who has continued to support us through these times and allowed us to continue our ministry virtually when necessary. A few announcements before we wrap up. Registration is still open for our fall online classes. This Wednesday evening, Reverend Michelle begins a course called Practical Mysticism. And this is exactly what I was talking about today. Mystics are those who understand our oneness with the divine and throughout the ages have taught beautiful spiritual truths. This class is awesome. It's a deep dive personally. There's a lot of connecting. It is happening on Zoom Wednesday evening from 6 to 8:30. You can either sign up on our website by going to donate, scrolling down to classes, writing in the name of the class, or you can simply email. The simplest email would be cslroguevalley@gmail.org and tell us you're interested in signing up for that class. I will be teaching the foundations of Science of Mind, which is our basic spiritual principles and how to put them in practice in your life to transform your life. And I know that countless people have talked about this class being a life changer. That will be happening Wednesday afternoons. We're doing a daytime class this time around to accommodate people whose schedules prefer daytime. It'll start Wednesday afternoon on October 6th from 2 to 4:30 in the afternoon. And you can, again, email cslroguevalley@gmail.org, gmail.com, or go online and sign up. I think that's it. Let's see. Of course, to sign up for our newsletter, you can do that on our Facebook page under email, or email cslroguevalley@gmail.com and ask to be put on our weekly e-newsletter list. And don't forget that your prayer requests are always welcome. There is a button on our website for prayer requests. We have a team of practitioners and ministers who will pray for you throughout the week, whatever it is you would like prayer for yourself or for someone else. That wraps up our announcements. We go once again to Lauren and Alexa for our closing song.
I am a center of creation. I am a seed planted in the stillness. I am a center of creation, fertile ground for the highest thoughts of God. I am a center of creation. I am a tree rooted in fullness. I am a center of creation, fertile ground for the highest thoughts of God. I am a center of creation. I am complete, living in wholeness. I am a center of creation, fertile ground for the highest thoughts of God. I am a center of creation. I am a seed planted in the stillness. I am a center of creation, fertile ground for the highest thoughts of God. I am a center of creation. I am a tree rooted in fullness. I am a center of creation, fertile ground for the highest thoughts of God. I am a center of creation. I am complete, living in wholeness. I am a center of creation, fertile ground for the highest thoughts of God.
Thank you, Alexa and Lauren. Before we leave you, I want to recognize our faithful crew of volunteers who make this broadcast possible every single week. Birthday boy Bill Miner, Connie Miner celebrating her birthday tomorrow, Jason Rummel, who's been our director this morning, Vivian Lacey on slides, and our sound engineer, Tom Frederick. Thank you to all of you. So, in the words of John Lennon, let's imagine this week. Let's imagine a world where people live as one. Let's remember to seed the clouds. Love to you all, my friends. Namaste.